So before we get into the small forward tier list video, I just want to say I'm the biggest idiot in the world. And there was a bunch of point guards that I just didn't have in the video, and I want to apologize to you guys for that. Especially if you were a fan of these players or teams. So just to bring it back up again, the players I didn't put in, I mentioned Bradley Beal just because he hasn't played a lot this season, but a lot of people will also mention Anthony Simons in the comments. He's like Bradley Beal that has been hurt for most of the season. The reason I also didn't have Tyler Hero in there because he hasn't played in a while. Same with Cam Thomas. There was a games limit of the Excel sheet that I was looking at to incorporate these players, but that's on me for not having Jalen Green or Jalen Suggs. I think if we're looking at a vacuum this season with all the injuries to Bradley Beal, I'd probably put him in like the mid tier for now. I think I'd also throw in Jalen Green in there, just like RJ Barrett and Zach LaVine. Maybe doesn't excel at something too specific, so he's gonna go in that mid tier, but it's not really bad at anything either. I think Jalen Suggs has just been an elite role player this season, but I think also he could go in that good starter just because of how good he has been on the defensive side of the floor, but has also been a knockdown shooter. Anthony Simons has really not played a ton this season, but he's shown a lot of promise when he has. He's going in the good starter. I think Tyler Hero, for what we've seen this year, has definitely been a borderline all-star. And at times, I think Cam Thomas should be in that tier as well. So a lot of you guys said that I was really high on guys like KCP, Devin Vassell, and Emmanuel Quickly, and Lonnie Walker too. And I read all your guys' comments, so I appreciate your feedback on the shooting guard tier list. I do apologize once again for not incorporating those guys in there. And let's get on with the small forward tier list. All right, so we are back here today with ranking every NBA positional group. Today, we're hopping on small forwards. Small forwards are definitely a weird position this year. A lot of players have transitioned to either being like a stretch four at the power forward spot or have played down a little bit at the 2 guard. So we definitely have a hodgepodge of names to rank today. If you guys are enjoying these tier list videos, I would appreciate you dropping a thumbs up. Like always, let me know what you guys think of my tier list in the comments below. The criteria for this is pretty much have to play more than 50% of their minutes this year at the small forward position. So guys like Kevin Durant, Jason Tatum will be in power forwards, and everybody on this list has to at least have played on average 20 minutes a night. So if there's somebody that wasn't listed here, they're most likely in the shooting guard video or in the power forward, which is coming next. And let's get right into it. All right, so we're going to start this off with Aaron Nesmith of the Indiana Pacers. I don't have any names for any of these tiers yet. So I think Nesmith has been a good shooter for the Pacers this year, definitely having a career year in year number 4. I think he's probably in the C or B tier. And once we figure this out later on, we'll kind of have an idea. And remember, this is just based off this season alone. So that means Andrew Wiggins has not been good this year. I think he's going to fall in the D tier. He has not been efficient from the field or from 3 or from the line. He just got benched by the Warriors. So next up, we have SROS Thompson, who's a rookie. And it's a shame too, because the Pistons have been so bad. I do think though, he's still one of the better players on this team. He still gets rebounds. He can block. He can play defense. He can't shoot to save his life, but I think he impacts the game a little bit more this year than Wiggins, even though like their team record isn't great. So I think he's either going to be a D tier or a C tier small forward. For now, I'll throw him in C tier. Next up, we have Benedict Mathurin of the Indiana Pacers, and Mathurin had a tough start to year 2. Definitely looked like he could have been on pace for a sophomore slump. He has been playing a little bit better as of lately, so I think he's going to be in the C tier with Aaron Nesmith. Man, shout out to Bilal Coulibaly, who's been so good for a 19-year-old this year. Man, he's been so much of a better shooter than I thought he would be. I think he definitely belongs in the C tier with the rest of these guys. It's crazy because Brandon Ingram may be one of the better players on this list overall, so for now, I'm going to throw him up in A tier. He's not been a good 3-point shooter this year, but he's been a good overall shooter. And the Pelicans have been very competitive in the Western Conference, and they've dealt with a bunch of injuries. So I think Brandon Ingram will be in A tier. He's definitely not dropping in this video, but there's even a chance he could jump up to S tier by the end of it. But on the flip side, Brandon Miller has been an elite 3-point shooter this year, and it's definitely been a nice rookie so far for the Charlotte Hornets. I'm debating if I want to throw him in the B tier because I kind of like that idea, but I think if I do throw Miller in the B tier, I'd have to give some respect to Aaron Nesmith and possibly Benedict Mathurin. So I think we'll throw... It's tough, man, because Nesmith really knows his role as kind of a floor spacer specialist. So I'm debating if I want to throw him in the B tier with Brandon Miller. So they might go up later on. We'll probably disband the C tier. So right now I'll throw Brandon Miller there, and we could eventually change that. We next up have Buddy Hield, who's been an elite 3-point shooter this year. Once again, I mean, who's surprised? You shouldn't be by now. Man, I don't know. Does he separate himself from these guys? I feel like he may. There's even a chance I bump down Andrew Wiggins to F tier by the end of it. So I think we will move some guys up and some guys down. I think C tier for all 3 of these Pacers guys, they've all been kind of good. So I feel like we can kind of bump up these guys. I think Coulibaly has shown great flashes, and him being at C tier already as a 19-year-old is great. And even for SROS Thompson being on as bad of a team as the Detroit Pistons have been this year. So you know what? I think I'm dropping down Wiggins. I think we're still going to have these guys in C tier. Next up, we have Caleb Martin, who's been a nice scorer for the Miami Heat, just kind of as a secondary guy. He's picking up where he left off in the playoffs. I think he's also a C-tier small forward. Cam Reddish has been a really good defender for the LA Lakers. He's been a nice role player for them. He's still not been too efficient, but I think he's shown up in some big moments. I kind of want to give him C-tier, which makes me think we may have to bump up Brandon Ingram to S-tier, and then we have to bump up Brandon Miller. We're going to have to bump up Aaron Nesmith, Buddy Hield, and Benedict Mather. If I had to pick which Pacers kind of small forward I like the most this year, it's probably been Buddy Hield or Aaron Nesmith. All right, next up we have Corey Kispert, who I think belongs in this tier with Aaron Nesmith and just kind of the Pacers small forwards and Brandon Miller. He's been an elite three-point shooter. I think DeAndre Hunter probably belongs in this tier as well. He's been also a good, efficient scorer, even though the Hawks have been struggling so far this season. We got DeMar DeRozan next, who I still think is a good scorer, and I think he's probably an 8-tier small forward so far this season. I'm going to be much more excited about him if he gets traded to like the Knicks or the Heat going forward, just because the Bulls are not a good team whatsoever. But I don't think it's like too much on DeMar DeRozan and what he's doing at his age. I think he's an A-tier small forward. Man, Denny's been really good as well. I think I'm going to throw Denny in that B tier. He doesn't get the ball too much because obviously they have some score first guys like Jordan Poole and Kyle Kuzma on their team. But yeah, whenever he gets the ball in his hands, he's an underrated playmaker. He's been efficient this year. I'm a big fan of Denny. Man, shout out to Derrick Jones Jr. this year, who I think has been a very good player for the Dallas Mavericks. He's been efficient and he's been more than they could have asked for after signing him this past offseason. Dylan Brooks, what he's doing on both ends of the floor, he just hit that dagger against his former team the other night. I kind of want to put Dylan Brooks in the A tier just because of how elite he's been on the defensive side of the floor and how good of a shooter he's also been for Houston and is helping turn around the identity of this Rockets squad. So I don't know. This is really tough on my tier list so far. Like, we may have to just drop people, but as of now, I think he's a tier above everybody in B tier so far this season. But this is definitely subject to change. I feel weird. I just feel weird doing that. So maybe we're going to drop him down to B. Duncan Robinson, once again, just an elite shooter. Man, this is going to get tough because I think Franz Wagner belongs with DeMar DeRozan in that A tier. He has helped turn this Magic team around. He's been inefficient at times, at least from downtown, but man, he has shown so many spurts of just being such an overall stud for Orlando. I think he's going to be in that A tier with DeRozan. Gordon Hayward, also been kind of good this year, man. The small forward position for like the role players, number 3, 4, 5 options on the team, has been pretty good this year. Man, what Herb Jones has been doing this year on the defensive side of the floor has been phenomenal. I also kind of want to put him in that A tier. Like, there's a chance I just bump up Franz and DeRozan and have like Brooks and Herb Jones in that tier. Like, I'm kind of looking throughout this tier list, like the names we have left, and I feel like, I don't know though, that is tough to really argue. So I think I'm going to go with that for now. Isaac Okoro has been a fine defender, but he's not much on the offensive side of the floor. I think he's probably a solid D tier candidate. All right, so I've updated this tier list where you have just full on the elite shooters tier because these guys are good starters. You want them on your team, but I feel like they're maybe not elite defenders, elite playmakers. They know their roles though. So I think I'm going to do that. I did drop Benedict Mathurin, maybe a tier, but I don't think this tier means that these guys are worse than the B tier. I think the B tier just also provides you some either elite defense or playmaking as well. Maybe not elite, but above average. Next up, we have Jaden McDaniels, who's an elite defender still, but the offense isn't there this year as much. He's not taking as many shots. It feels like he has been efficient when he shoots the ball. I still may throw him in B tier because of that defense. Also, shout out to Jaime Jaquez. I kind of want to throw him in B tier as well. He's been one of the better rookies in the NBA this year as a playmaker and has been such a huge draft pick for the Miami Heat. Man, I kind of want to give Jalen Johnson like some A tier love just because of how good he has been before he ended up getting injured. But he's going to go in that B tier with Jaime Jaquez as well. A lot of this is probably going to change by the end of the video. Jaylen Brown, I think this season, though, has been in the A tier. I think he's been a little bit disappointing. He's definitely not lived up to his contract. That was going to be very tough to do. But just his overall shooting ability and just kind of shot creation, I feel like hasn't been there. So I'm going to throw him in the A tier. That could be up for debate. I'm going to throw Kawhi Leonard in that S tier. He's still that all-NBA caliber guy, and he's been a beast. Man, Keegan Murray got off to a rough start, but he has been a little bit better as of late. I'm going to throw him in that C tier for now, just because he was very inefficient to start off the year, and his numbers right now still don't look great. Definitely a little bit into a sophomore slump. He's also kind of come up in some trade rumors for like Lauri Markkanen and maybe Donovan Mitchell, so that's just been interesting to hear. All right, so I think Keldon Johnson belongs in that B tier. I also think Kelly Oubre belongs in that B tier. These guys have been good small forwards this year. A part of me just wants to drop Okoro, drop everybody in C tier to D tier, but these are all good players that I like. And then we are just going to flood the C tier because I feel like there's just a ton of C tier small forwards. And if I were going to put anybody in B tier, I like putting Herb Jones, Keldon Johnson, Dylan Brooks, Jalen Johnson as well. And I think I'm okay with this. It still is all a work in progress. I think Chris Middleton has been somewhat average this year. I don't think he's been the Chris Middleton of old. He definitely looks like he's getting up there in age. So I'm going to throw him in that D tier this year. I don't think he's been great. And I think I would take a lot of these forwards ahead of him so far this year in 2023/4. All right, so we are going to throw Klay Thompson in that C tier. It has not been the Klay of old. Unfortunately, he has been wildly inconsistent at times, but I still think he's a serviceable small forward. Same with Lou Dort. Elite defender, somewhat of a good three-point shooter. He's in a drought right now and kind of a cold spell, but he is still a good small forward that you want on both ends of the floor. Matisse Thybulle, I think, is still a good defender. He doesn't really take a lot of shots. He's pretty non-existent on the offensive side of the floor. It's hard to work around him, but you know what? He's at least hitting his threes this year. He'll go in the D tier. All right, so I think Max Strus has been a nice role player for the Cavs. He's going to have to step up once again in the absence of Darius Garland and Evan Mobley now that they are hurt. I think Michael Porter Jr. is probably in that B tier, probably towards the end of it. He's been an elite shooter once again, but maybe he's not taking that scoring step that we all thought he possibly could have taken this year. Mikal Bridges, huge fan of him. I low-key want to put him up into yes tier just because of how elite of a two-way player he is. So you know what? I'm going to make that my hot take of the video. I'm saying Mikal Bridges has been better this year than Jaylen Brown, DeMar DeRozan, Franz Wagner, and Michael Porter Jr. You can let me know what you think about that in the comments below. All right, it really pains me to say this, but Miles Bridges is having a B-tier season. That's all I'm going to talk about. All right, next up we have Najee Marshall, who I actually think has been a good small forward. Man, the Pelicans have a ton of small forwards, and it's like, for now this tier, which you may not see like any Phoenix Suns, because we had Devin Booker, Beal, Josh Okogie, Eric Gordon, Grayson Allen, all in the shooting guard tier, and then there's going to be a bunch of like Lakers in the power forward tier, but for like the Pelicans, we'll see a couple small forwards. I think Najee Marshall has been good in his limited minutes this year. I think OG Anunoby is probably a borderline A tier forward this year just because of how elite he's been on the defensive side of the floor. You could make an argument he's been better than Dylan Brooks and Herb Jones this year, but also have been a very solid offensive player. Pat Connaughton, in my opinion, is an F tier small forward. I don't think he'd be getting nearly as many minutes as he would on any other team. It's just that the Bucks don't have a deep bench. All right, we got Royce O'Neal. I think he's actually been a solid shooter this year, at least from downtown, not as much inside the three-point arc. Still a solid defender. I think he's a D tier small forward, somebody you still would want at like the end or middle of your rotation, off the bench, I mean. We got Saddiq Bey, C tier small forward. You're going to get that primary shot creation, but that's pretty much it out of him, but he at least has been efficient this year. Sam Hauser, I kind of want to put him in B tier because he's been an underrated defender. He's been a knockdown shooter, but I'm going to throw him in C tier. All right, so we got 4 small forwards left. We're going to throw Tim Hardaway Jr., borderline B tier, C tier. I may throw him in that B tier, but this is kind of subject to change. I think we're going to move a lot of guys in this B and C tier at the end of it, possibly move some guys up from the D tier. I think Torrey Craig, he's close to being an F tier small forward just compared to like everybody on this list. So you know what? I'm going to throw him in there. He's still a fine three-point shooter, but to be honest with you, you probably don't want him as your starting or backup small forward if you're on a good team. He's probably more as like a third string small forward at this point in his career. Trey Murphy hasn't played a lot this year, but when he has, he's been one of the league's best shooters. I'm just such a huge Trey Murphy fan, so this may be a little bit of a bias, but I think he's right up there in B tier. And then lastly, Zaire Williams, man, he was a top 10 pick back in 2021. He has not played well. This was a time for him to step up in the absence of Ja Morant, but he has not done so. F tier for me. So I'm debating if this is a little bit harsh on Andrew Wiggins, but he's not been good this year. And yeah, he's going to put up 12 points because he's going to take as many shots, but I think he belongs in F tier. So I don't think I'm going to move anybody up. If you think I should move up Okoro or Craig, that's fine. You know, because Okoro is giving you at least some solid defense. So I'm going to move up Okoro. Do I want to move up anybody from D tier into C tier? I like Derrick Jones because you're comparing these players to everybody else on this tier list. I don't think Murray belongs up. You know what? I think Bilal is fine going up. Am I being harsh on Middleton? Maybe, but I eventually have to drop some guys. And I like most of the guys in D tier. So you know what? I think I'm going to drop Najee Marshall. I think I want to drop Chris Middleton. Like, yeah, he's going to put up 12 or whatever he's putting up right now because the amount of shots he's taking. And obviously, I'm just looking at this year. I don't care what Middleton has done in the past, but he's been somewhat efficient. Oh man, the small forward position is really good in these middle tiers this year. So I don't really feel bad about having so many guys in the C tier because all of these guys have been solid players. I just think I should hammer out my top tier. So I think, I don't know, man, small forwards are tough. Like, I would love to hear your guys' opinions on so many of these players and their placements, but I don't think Jaylen Brown has been an S tier forward. I think if anything, you could probably drop DeMar DeRozan a tier as well, but I think I'm fine with my S and my A tier. My B tier, do I want to drop Miles Bridges? I think I may be liking Jalen Johnson too much. No, man, he was really good when he was playing, so I think I'm going to leave my B tier as this. I hate to have Miles Bridges in there, but I feel like I have to. Keldon Johnson, I'm going to keep in there as well. Do I want to move anybody up into B tier? I don't know, man. All of these small forwards in B tier have been good this year. If you want to move up possibly Jaden McDaniels because of the defense, I'm okay with that. I mean, I think Cam Reddish has been a good defender, but I don't think he's been as elite as some of these guys like Brooks or Herb Jones or OG Anunoby. So I think I'm still fine with him in D tier. Asar Thompson impacts the game in a lot of levels though, and he's a rookie. So you know what? I'm going with, oh, am I being mean to Keegan Murray? Then leaving him in D tier. All right, so this is what I'm going with. C tier is going to be such a heavy tier, and I'm okay with that. I want to know if you guys think I should move anybody in C tier into B tier and vice versa. Maybe drop Johnson, either Keldon or Jalen, Bridges, or Tim Hardaway Jr. down a tier, but I like having Brooks, Trey Murphy, and Herb Jones there. I could be harsh on Andrew Wiggins, but hey, I don't care. I'm sick of his shit. And if you guys did enjoy, I'd appreciate you dropping a thumbs up. I love you guys. This was an insanely tough tier list to do. I created it myself. I'll leave it in the description if you want to take a crack at it, and you can let me know what you come up with on Twitter. So yeah, thank you all for watching. I love you guys, and I'll catch you all in tomorrow's video. Peace.